Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon and watched the stars shift as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 3 years they had been traveling from Earth, and now they were in a new solar system that no human had ever seen before. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines and the beeping of computers. "Captain, we are getting readings from the third planet," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her station. Her voice was excited, but Jake could hear she was nervous too. They all were nervous because this was the first time humans had traveled this far from home. Jake walked over to look at her screen. The planet was blue and green like Earth, but bigger. "Are there any signs of life?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Amy said. "There are cities and what look like ships moving around the planet." Engineer Pete Johnson looked up from his control panel. "Captain, the ship computers are picking up signals from the planet. It looks like they know we are here." Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was it. The moment Earth had been waiting for. First contact with alien life. "Send them our standard greeting message," he told Amy. "Let them know we come in peace." They waited for what felt like hours but was only 20 minutes. Then the ship computers started beeping loudly. "Captain," said Dr. Susan Blake from the science station, "we are getting a response, and the computer is translating it. They want to meet us." A day later, Jake found himself sitting across from beings that looked nothing like humans. The Zalathi were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. Their leader called himself High Commander Vextar, and he spoke in a voice that sounded like metal hitting metal. "We welcome you humans to our space," Vextar said through the translation device. "Your species shows promise with your technology and your ability to travel between stars." Jake smiled. "We are honored to meet you. Earth has always wondered if we were alone in the universe." The meeting room on the Zalathi ship was cold and everything was made of smooth metal. Jake had brought Amy and Pete with him while Dr. Blake stayed on the horizon to study the alien technology they were being shown. For the next few hours, they shared information about their species. The Zalathi had been traveling space for thousands of years and controlled many planets. They were impressed that humans had developed space travel so quickly, but Jake noticed they seemed to be studying the humans very carefully. "Tell us about human emotions," Vexitar asked suddenly. "We observe that your species displays many different emotional states." Jake was not sure how to answer that. "Well, yes, we feel happiness and sadness and fear and love. These emotions help us connect with each other and make decisions." Vextar made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was not pleasant. "We evolved beyond such primitive responses long ago. Emotions only lead to poor decisions and weakness." Amy shifted in her chair, and Jake saw she looked uncomfortable. Pete was frowning, and Dr. Blake would have been upset to hear aliens calling human emotions primitive. The cultural exchange continued for several days. The Zalathi showed them advanced technology that was far beyond anything humans had. Their ships were powered by energy sources Earth scientists had only dreamed about. Their weapons could destroy entire mountains. Their computers could think faster than any human mind, but the Zalathi also watched everything the humans did. When Amy started crying after they lost communication with Earth for a few hours, they watched with what looked like disgust. When Pete got angry about how the aliens arranged the food, they watched and took notes. When Jake showed worry about his crew, they seemed to think he was weak. "Your species is interesting," Vexitar told Jake on the last day. "You have good technology for such a young civilization, but you are held back by your emotional weaknesses. These feelings you have make you unpredictable and unstable." Jake tried to explain that emotions made humans stronger and helped them work together, but the Zalathi leader did not seem to understand. To them, feelings were just problems that got in the way of logical thinking. "We have learned much from this meeting," Vextar said as they prepared to leave. "Perhaps we will meet again when your species has evolved beyond these primitive emotional responses." The humans returned to their ship and began the long journey back to Earth. But they did not know that the Zalathi were having meetings of their own. High Commander Vextar met with his war council after the humans left. The human species has potential, but they are fatally flawed, he told his officers. Their emotional responses make them weak and easily broken. They cry when separated from their home. They argue over small things. They worry about each other instead of focusing on efficiency. What do you recommend? Asked Sub-Commander Krell. We will return to our empire and prepare invasion forces, Vextar said. The humans have some useful technology and their planet has good resources, but they will be easy to conquer because their emotions will make them panic and give up quickly. We will absorb them into our empire as workers. The Zalathi had made their first and most important mistake. They looked at human emotions and saw only weakness. They did not see the strength that came from love and determination and the willingness to fight for what mattered. They did not understand that human feelings could drive them to do impossible things. As the USS Horizon traveled back toward Earth, Jake Morrison looked at the stars and felt proud of his species. He did not know that war was coming and that everything would depend on the very emotions the aliens thought made humans weak. Admiral Lisa Grant was drinking coffee in her quarters aboard the UES Liberty when the alarms started screaming. She ran to the bridge still in her sleeping clothes and saw her crew staring at the main screen with faces full of fear. Admiral, said Commander Tony Lewis, we have massive contacts appearing at the edge of the solar system. The computers count at least 50 ships, and they are all bigger than anything we have ever built. Lisa looked at the screen and felt her stomach drop. The ships were huge, dark shapes that blocked out the stars behind them. Each one was 3 times longer than the biggest human warship, and they were moving toward Earth with purpose. Send word to all defense stations, she ordered. This is not a drill. Unknown hostile forces are entering our system. The Zalathi fleet moved through space like predators hunting prey. High Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the small human ships scrambling to form defensive lines. Just as he had predicted, the humans were panicking and their emotional responses were making them sloppy. Begin the attack. He ordered, remember that these beings are weak and will break easily. Use minimum force necessary to make them surrender. The first battle happened near the orbit of Mars. Colonel Ryan Murphy led a squadron of 20 human fighters against a single Zalathi destroyer. He had trained for space combat his whole life, but nothing prepared him for what happened next. The Zalathi ship fired beams of pure energy that cut through human shields like they were made of paper. Murphy watched in horror as his fighters were destroyed one by one. The alien weapons were so advanced that human armor meant nothing. Break off, he screamed into his radio, but only 3 of his pilots were left alive to hear him. On Earth, General Kate Williams was coordinating evacuations from the military command center. The reports coming in from space were terrible. The human fleet was being destroyed ship by ship, and the aliens were not even using their full power. General, said Major Ben Clark, the Zalathi are demanding our surrender. They say if we give up now, they will be merciful. Kate looked around the command center at all the people working to save their planet. These were good people, with families and dreams and hopes. The thought of surrendering them to aliens who thought emotions were weakness made her angry. Tell them no, she said. Humanity does not surrender. The Zalathi began landing troops on Earth, starting with the biggest cities. Their plan was simple and logical. Take the population centers and the humans would have to give up to save their people. It was the kind of strategy that would work on any logical species. But humans were not logical in New York City. Sergeant Danny Torres crouched behind a destroyed car and watched Zalathi soldiers marching down the street. The aliens were tall and moved with mechanical precision. Their weapons looked like they could destroy buildings with single shots. Danny looked at his squad of 6 soldiers. They had basic rifles and explosives against enemies with technology from science fiction movies. Any logical person would retreat or surrender. Sergeant, what are our orders? asked Private Helen Ross. Danny thought about his daughter who lived in this city and his wife who worked at the hospital only blocks away. The Zalathi thought emotions made humans weak, but Danny felt his love for his family making him stronger and more determined than he had ever been in his life. "We fight," he said. The battle for New York was brutal and chaotic. The Zalathi had expected the human military to collapse when they realized how outmatched they were. Instead, they found soldiers who fought with desperate creativity born from emotional investment. When Danny saw civilians trapped in a building that was about to collapse, he did something no logical Zalathi would ever attempt. He grabbed damaged alien equipment from a destroyed Zalathi vehicle and used his basic knowledge of explosives to create a bomb that could clear the debris. It was dangerous and stupid and the kind of thing that could kill him easily, but he was not thinking about safety or logic. He was thinking about the people who needed help, and that emotional drive gave him the courage to take risks that saved lives. The explosion worked, and 20 civilians escaped, including a family with small children. Danny felt tears in his eyes as he watched them run to safety, but these were not tears of weakness. They were tears of joy and determination. Admiral Grant fought the space battle knowing that her fleet was doomed, but refusing to give up. Her ships were smaller and weaker, but her crews fought with emotional bonds that the Zalathi could not understand. Admiral said, "Captain Paul Kim from the bridge of the cruiser Defiance. My ship is badly damaged, but we can still fight." Then we keep fighting, Lisa said, for Earth. The human crews worked together with a coordination that came not from computer systems, but from years of friendship and shared purpose. When the Liberty lost power, the crew of the Defiance moved their ship to protect it, even though it meant certain destruction. Captain Kim died with his ship, but his sacrifice saved 3 other human vessels and gave them time to retreat and regroup high. Commander Vexitar watched the battle reports with growing confusion. The humans were losing badly, but they were not breaking. Their emotional responses were supposed to make them panic and surrender, but instead they seemed to be fighting harder. Sub-Commander Krell, he said, "Explain why the humans continue to resist when they know they cannot win." "Unknown, sir," Krell replied. "Our psychological models predicted they would surrender after losing 30% of their forces. They have lost 60% and are still attacking our positions." Vextar studied the data. Human soldiers were taking impossible risks to save civilians. Human pilots were flying damaged ships into Zalathi vessels. Human families were fighting together instead of fleeing in panic. "Increase the attack," he ordered. "They must be made to understand that resistance is futile." But the Zalathi were making their second mistake. They thought that more force would break human spirit, but they did not understand that suffering often made humans stronger. Every loss and every sacrifice was creating more determination. Not less, as the first day of invasion ended, Earth was wounded, but not broken. The human fleet was scattered and many cities were under alien control, but something unexpected was happening. The emotional bonds between humans were creating networks of resistance that the Zalathi had not planned for. In hidden bunkers and damaged ships, humans were beginning to work together in ways that purely logical beings could never achieve. They were taking the alien technology from destroyed Zalathi vehicles and learning to use it through intuition and desperate creativity. The invasion was going according to Zalathi plans, but they were starting to realize that their plans might not be enough. Dr. Maria Santos crawled through the ventilation system of the underground research facility, carrying pieces of Zalathi technology that her team had salvaged from destroyed alien vehicles. The facility was hidden beneath the ruins of Chicago, and the aliens did not know it existed yet. She dropped down into the main lab where her team was waiting. Engineer Ben Clark looked up from a workbench covered with alien devices and human computers connected together with cables and wires. "Doctor, did you find the power source?" he asked. Maria pulled a glowing crystal from her backpack. It was about the size of her fist and pulsed with blue light. This came from a Zalathi weapon that got damaged in the fighting. I think it might be how they power their equipment. The team had been working for 2 weeks trying to understand alien technology. The Zalathi systems were far more advanced than anything humans had built, but Maria was discovering something interesting. The alien computers seemed to respond to human thoughts and emotions in ways they were not designed for. "Ben, try connecting the crystal to the neural interface we built," she said. Ben was nervous as he put on the helmet they had created by combining human brain scanning equipment with Zalathi computer parts. When he activated the system, his eyes went wide with amazement. "Maria, I can feel the computer thinking," he said. "But it is not just processing data. It seems to be reacting to how I feel about the data." Maria took notes as Ben experimented with the interface. The Zalathi had designed their technology for minds that were purely logical, but human emotions were creating unexpected effects in their systems. Meanwhile, in the ruins of New York, Captain Tony Lewis led a group of resistance fighters through the subway tunnels. His team included soldiers and civilians who had joined together to fight the occupation. They moved quietly because Zalathi patrols were everywhere above ground, Captain, whispered Nurse Helen Ross. "My daughter is in the hospital that the aliens are using as a prison. She was just a child trying to help wounded people when they took her." Tony saw the pain in Helen's eyes and felt his own anger growing. The Zalathi thought human emotions were weaknesses, but Tony was learning that feelings like love and anger could make people capable of incredible things. "We will get her back," he promised. "Tonight, we hit the hospital." The attack on the hospital was supposed to be impossible. The building was guarded by Zalathi soldiers with advanced weapons and energy shields. Any logical military commander would have said the mission could not succeed. But Tony's team was not thinking logically. They were thinking about the innocent people trapped inside, and that emotional drive pushed them to attempt tactics that the aliens could not predict. Sergeant Danny Torres used his knowledge of the building's structure to create explosions that brought down part of the outer wall. Private Mike Johnson crawled through drainage pipes to get inside the building. Helen Ross walked directly to the front door and surrendered, herself to create a distraction. The plan was chaotic and dangerous and full of risks that could have gotten them all killed. But it worked because the Zalathi guards were not prepared for humans who would risk everything for emotional reasons. Tony's team rescued 30 civilians, including Helen's daughter, and escaped with valuable intelligence about Zalathi operations. More importantly, they proved that human resistance could succeed against impossible odds high. Commander Vextar reviewed the reports from occupied territories with growing frustration. The humans were supposed to be broken and demoralized by now, but instead they seemed to be organizing more effective resistance every day. Sub-Commander Krell explained how a small group of humans destroyed our detention facility. He demanded, "Sir, the humans use tactics that our computer models cannot predict." Krell replied, "They take risks that no logical being would attempt, and they seem willing to die for other humans they barely know." Vextar studied video recordings of human fighters. He watched Danny Torres risk his life to save strangers. He watched Helen Ross surrender herself to help her daughter. He watched Ben Clark experiment with dangerous alien technology because he wanted to help his planet. These emotional responses are not making them weaker, he realized. They are creating unpredictable behavior that our forces cannot counter effectively in. Space Admiral Grant commanded what remained of the human fleet from a hidden base in the asteroid belt. Her ships were damaged and her crews were exhausted, but they refused to give up. "Admiral," said Commander Lisa Hunt, "we intercepted Zalathi. Communications. They are bringing in reinforcements from their home system." Lisa felt fear, but she also felt something else. The bonds between her surviving crews had grown stronger through shared hardship. Pilots who barely knew each other before the war now worked together like family members. "Then we need to hit them before the reinforcements arrive," she decided. "All ships prepare for attack." The human fleet struck at a Zalathi supply convoy near Jupiter. The battle was fierce and costly, but the humans achieved something important. They captured intact alien technology and proved they could still hurt their enemies. Captain Paul Kim's younger brother, Jake. Kim flew a fighter in the battle. When Paul had died defending Earth, Jake felt grief that could have broken him. Instead, he channeled that emotion into determination to continue his brother's fight. Jake flew his damaged fighter directly into a Zalathi cruiser's main weapon. The explosion destroyed both ships, but it also disabled the enemy convoy's flagship back on. Earth Dr. Santos made a breakthrough discovery. The neural interface she had built with Ben Clark allowed humans to control Zalathi technology in ways the aliens never intended. Ben, the computer, is not just responding to our thoughts, she explained excitedly. It is amplifying our emotional energy and turning it into processing power. The Zalathi had created their technology for purely logical minds that would use it efficiently and safely. They never considered what would happen if emotional beings used systems designed for logical ones. When Ben felt anger about the invasion, the computer systems ran faster. When he felt love for his family, the networks connected more strongly. When he felt determination to win the war, the alien technology pushed beyond its normal limits. We can use this, Maria realized. Human emotions are not just compatible with their technology. Our feelings make their systems work better than they were. Designed to. The resistance movement began spreading this knowledge through hidden networks. Human engineers started building hybrid devices that combined salvaged alien technology with human emotional interfaces. In London, a team led by engineer Carol Davis created weapons that could only be used by humans because they required emotional investment to function. In Tokyo, scientist Robert Park developed communication systems that used human bonds of friendship to create unbreakable networks. The Zalathi began losing equipment and soldiers at an alarming rate. Their logical military strategies were failing against human opponents who fought with emotional determination that created tactical advantages their computers could not calculate. Sir, reported Sub-Commander Krell, human resistance is increasing in all occupied territories. Our casualty rates are approaching unacceptable levels. High Commander Vexatar realized that his initial assessment of humanity had been wrong, but his logical mind struggled to understand how emotions could create military advantages. Increase. Our forces, he ordered, deploy additional troops and heavier weapons, but the Zalathi were making their third mistake. They thought that superior force could overcome human emotional resilience, but they did not understand that hardship often made human bonds stronger rather than weaker. As the invasion entered its third month, Earth was still fighting, and the aliens were beginning to realize that conquering humanity might be much harder than they had expected. Dr. Maria Santos stood in the underground laboratory, holding what looked like a simple headset, but she knew it could change everything. 3 months of working with salvaged Zalathi technology had led to this moment. The neural interface she had, developed with Ben Clark, could allow human pilots to control alien spacecraft. Ben, are you ready to test this? She asked. Ben Clark looked nervous, but determined as he put on the headset. For Earth, he said simply. The captured Zalathi fighter sat in the hidden hangar like a sleeping predator. Its hull was smooth and dark and covered with symbols that no human could read. When Ben activated the neural interface, his consciousness flowed into the alien ship's computer system. Maria, this is incredible, he said with wonder in his voice. I can feel the ship thinking, but it is responding to my emotions in ways it was never designed for. The Zalathi had built their fighters for logical pilots who would use them efficiently and safely. They never imagined what would happen when a human mind full of emotions interfaced with their technology. Ben felt his love for his family, and the ship's engines hummed with power beyond their normal specifications. He felt his anger about the invasion and the weapon systems charged faster than Zalathi engineers thought possible. He felt his determination to protect Earth, and the entire spacecraft seemed to come alive with purpose. The emotional neural patterns are creating feedback loops in their systems, Maria observed excitedly. Human feelings are making their technology work better than it was designed to. Above ground, Commander Lisa Hunt was preparing for her first mission in a hybrid human Zalathi fighter. She was one of Earth's best pilots, but flying alien technology was terrifying and exciting at the same time. "Remember," said Captain Tony Lewis over the radio, "the ship will respond to your emotions, but you have to stay focused." Lisa activated the neural interface and felt the alien fighter's consciousness merge with her own. The sensation was overwhelming at first, but then she began to understand how to work with the ship instead of just controlling it. Her first test flight was supposed to be simple reconnaissance, but she encountered a Zalathi patrol near the ruins of Boston. When she saw the destroyed city where she had grown up, Lisa felt a surge of grief and anger that the alien ship translated into pure speed. The Zalathi pilots were confused when their sensors detected one of their own fighters moving faster than should be possible. Lisa used their confusion to attack with tactics that no logical Zalathi would attempt. She flew directly through their formation while firing in patterns that seemed random, but were actually guided by her emotional intuition. The human bonds she felt with her lost squadron mates from before the war helped her predict enemy movements in ways that Zalathi computers could not calculate. 2 enemy fighters were destroyed before they understood what was happening. Lisa escaped back to the hidden base with valuable intelligence and proof that humans could fight the aliens with their own technology in the resistance stronghold beneath Chicago. Captain Tony Lewis met with cell leaders from around the world. Through a communication network that Dr. Santos had built, using Zalathi technology powered by human emotional connections. "Our people in Tokyo report they have successfully modified alien weapons," said engineer Carol Davis over the quantum link. "The devices can only be used by humans because they require emotional investment to function." London confirms similar results, added scientist Robert Park. "We have created communication systems that use human friendship bonds to create networks the aliens cannot break." Tony felt hope growing as he listened to reports from resistance groups everywhere. The Zalathi had expected to break human spirit through superior force, but instead they had given humanity access to technology that worked better with emotional minds than logical ones. On the hidden asteroid base, Admiral Grant planned Operation Homecoming with her surviving ship commanders. The human fleet was small, but now they had something the aliens did not expect. "Our pilots report that the hybrid fighters perform beyond all specifications when flown by human crews," said Colonel Ryan Murphy. "The emotional bonds between squadron mates create coordination effects that the Zalathi cannot match." Lisa Grant felt proud as she looked around the meeting room at officers who had lost everything but refused to give up. These people fought not because logic told them they could win, but because love for their species drove them to attempt the impossible. "We will take back our home," she declared. "Not because we are stronger or smarter than the aliens, but because we fight with our hearts as well as our minds." The turning point came during the Battle of Luna Station. High Commander Vextar led a Zalathi fleet to destroy the human research facility on Earth's moon. He expected easy victory against the handful of human ships defending the station. Instead, he found his forces facing fighters that moved with impossible coordination and weapons that fired with emotional precision. The human pilots were connected by bonds of friendship and shared purpose that created tactical advantages no computer could calculate. Commander Lisa Hunt led the human squadron in a formation that seemed chaotic but worked perfectly. When her wingman Jake Kim was hit by enemy fire, she felt his pain through their emotional connection and used that feeling to guide her counterattack. "This is impossible," reported Sub-Commander Krell from the Zalathi flagship. "Human fighters are operating beyond the performance limits of their technology." Vextar watched in confusion as human ships coordinated attacks through what appeared to be telepathic communication. The pilots were pushing alien technology past its safety limits through sheer emotional determination. Sergeant Danny Torres participated in the ground assault on Luna Station, using weapons that Dr. Santos had modified with human neural interfaces. The alien energy rifle in his hands responded to his protective instincts and fired with accuracy that surprised even him. When Torres saw wounded civilians in the station's medical bay, he felt the same love for strangers that had driven him throughout the resistance. The Zalathi weapon channeled that emotion into healing energy that saved lives. These humans are using our own technology against us in ways we never considered. Vextar realized their emotional responses are not weaknesses. They are creating advantages we cannot counter. The Battle of Luna Station ended with Zalathi retreat and human victory. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens had been decisively defeated. Dr. Santos analyzed the battle data with excitement and amazement. The emotional connections between human crews are creating network effects in Zalathi systems. She explained to Admiral Grant, when pilots feel bonds with their squadron mates, the ships link together and amplify each other's capabilities. Are you saying our feelings make us better at using their technology than they are? Grant asked. Exactly. Maria replied. The Zalathi designed their systems for purely logical minds, but human emotional intelligence is creating possibilities they never imagined. High Commander Vextar met with his war council after the defeat. For the first time since arriving in the solar system, he felt something that Zalathi had evolved beyond centuries ago. He felt doubt. Sir, the humans are adapting to our technology faster than our models predicted, reported Krell. Their emotional responses are creating tactical advantages that our strategic computers cannot calculate. Vextar studied recordings of human fighters moving in perfect coordination, guided by feelings rather than logical communication. He watched human soldiers using Zalathi weapons with emotional precision that exceeded original specifications. We underestimated them, he admitted. We saw their emotions as primitive weaknesses. But these feelings are actually evolutionary advantages that our species abandoned long ago. The war was far from over, but the balance had shifted. Humanity had learned to use alien technology enhanced by human emotions, and the Zalathi were beginning to realize that conquering Earth might be impossible. As Admiral Grant prepared for the final phase of Operation Homecoming, she felt something she had not experienced since the invasion began. She felt like humans might actually win. Admiral Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, looking at a display showing human forces gathering from around the solar system. 6 months ago, the human fleet had been scattered and broken, but now they were ready to take back their home planet. All ships report ready for Operation Homecoming, said Commander Tony Lewis from the tactical station. We have 40 hybrid fighters and 12 capital ships equipped with the new emotional interface systems. Lisa felt nervous excitement as she looked at the fleet that Dr. Maria Santos and her team had helped create. Every ship now carried technology that combined Zalathi engineering with human emotional intelligence. Begin the assault, she ordered, for Earth. The human counterattack started simultaneously in space and on the ground. In orbit around Earth, Commander. Lisa Hunt led a squadron of hybrid fighters against Zalathi defensive positions. The alien technology responded to her emotional bonds with her pilots and created coordination that the enemy could not match. Squadrons, stay together, she said over the radio. Remember that the ships can feel what we feel. When Jake Kim's fighter was damaged by enemy fire, Lisa felt his fear through their emotional connection. Instead of weakening her, the feeling made her more determined to protect her wingman. The alien ship translated her protective instincts into tactical precision that saved Jake's life. On Earth, Captain Tony Lewis led ground forces equipped with weapons that Dr. Santos had modified to use human emotional energy. The devices could only be operated by beings capable of love and anger and determination. Remember why we fight, Tony told his troops as they prepared to assault the Zalathi Command Center in New York. Every person they have captured, every city they have destroyed, every dream they have tried to crush, Sergeant Danny Torres carried an energy rifle that hummed with power when he thought about his daughter who was hiding in the underground shelters. The weapon responded to his love for her and fired with accuracy that no logical targeting system could achieve. The assault on the command center was brutal, but the human forces fought with emotional bonds that the Zalathi could not understand. When Private Mike Johnson was wounded trying to save civilians, Torres felt his comrades' pain and used that feeling to guide his counterattack. In the underground laboratory, Dr. Santos monitored the battle through a network powered by human emotional connections. The communication system she had built used the bonds between family members and friends to create links that Zalathi technology could not break. "Admiral, the emotional network is stable," she reported to Grant. "Our forces are coordinating through feelings rather than just tactical data." The breakthrough came when Santos activated a planet-wide array of devices that could channel human emotional energy into the captured Zalathi technology. Every act of love and courage and sacrifice added power to the network. Nurse Helen Ross was treating wounded soldiers in a field hospital when she felt the network activate. Suddenly, she could sense the determination of fighters across the planet. Her medical equipment began working beyond its normal capabilities because it was powered by her compassion for the injured. In London engineer Carol Davis used the emotional energy of her team's shared purpose to override Zalathi security systems. The aliens had designed their computers to resist logical attacks, but they could not stop human feelings from flowing through their networks. "The enemy systems are responding to our emotional input," she reported excitedly. "We can control their technology by feeling strongly about our goals." High Commander Vexitar watched his forces retreating from position after position as human attacks succeeded through tactics that defied all logical analysis. "Sir, the humans are using our own technology against us with efficiency that exceeds original specifications," reported Sub-Commander Krell. "Their emotional responses are creating capabilities we did not know were possible." Vextar studied battle reports that made no sense according to Zalathi military doctrine. Human pilots were flying damaged ships beyond their limits through emotional determination. Human soldiers were using alien weapons with precision, guided by feelings rather than training. "How can primitive emotional responses create superior tactical performance?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir." Krell replied, "Our computers cannot model the effects of love and anger and sacrifice on military operations." The space battle around Earth reached its climax when Admiral Grant led her fleet in a direct assault. On the Zalathi command ship, the human vessels moved with coordination that came from emotional bonds between crews rather than computer networks. "All ships concentrate fire on the flagship," Grant ordered. "Show them what happens when you threaten our families." Commander Hunt dove her fighter through the enemy formation while feeling the support of every pilot in her squadron. The emotional connections between the human crews created tactical awareness that allowed them to anticipate each other's movements perfectly. When the Liberty's engines were damaged, Captain Paul Kim moved his cruiser to shield the flagship, even though it meant exposing his own ship to enemy fire. His sacrifice was not based on logic, but on loyalty, and that emotional choice saved the human command structure. The Zalathi flagship's shields began failing under coordinated attacks guided by human emotional intelligence. Admiral Grant felt tears in her eyes as she watched her people fighting with courage that no computer could calculate. "Target their main reactor," she ordered. "End this." The final attack was led by Danny Torres, who had volunteered to pilot a fighter loaded with experimental weapons powered by human emotional energy. As he approached the enemy ship, he thought about his daughter and his wife and all the people counting on him. The weapon he carried could only be fired by someone willing to sacrifice everything for others. As Torres triggered the device, he felt love for his family and his species flowing through the alien technology and transforming it into power beyond anything the Zalathi had ever seen. The explosion destroyed the command ship and sent shockwaves through the enemy fleet. For the first time in their history, the Zalathi found themselves facing defeat by beings they had dismissed as emotionally primitive. On the ground, the human assault reached the main Zalathi stronghold in what used to be Washington, D.C. Captain Lewis led his forces through defenses powered by alien technology, but guided by human emotional determination. "For everyone we have lost," he shouted as they breached the final barrier. "For everyone we will save," the defenders found themselves facing. Soldiers who fought not just with weapons, but with bonds of brotherhood that made them stronger than the sum of their parts. When one human fell, another took his place, driven by loyalty that the logical Zalathi could not understand. Dr. Santos watched from her laboratory as the emotional network reached full power. Humans across the planet were connected through feelings of hope and determination and love. The captured alien technology was being pushed beyond all limits by the emotional energy of an entire species fighting for survival. "Admiral," she reported to Grant, "the network is stable and growing stronger. Human emotional energy is overloading Zalathi systems across the planet." The tide had turned completely. The aliens who had expected to conquer a weak and emotionally unstable species found themselves retreating from beings whose feelings made them more capable rather than less. As the sun set on Earth, human flags were rising over cities that had been under alien control for months. The counterattack was succeeding not despite human emotions, but because of them. High Commander Vextar stood on his damaged flagship and realized that his species had made a fundamental error in understanding humanity. The emotions they had seen as weaknesses were actually the source of human strength. "Prepare for retreat," he ordered, with something that might have been respect in his voice. "We have greatly underestimated these beings." The final battle for Earth began at dawn when Zalathi reinforcements arrived from their home system. High Commander Vextar had called for their most powerful weapons, including ships that could destroy entire planets. If he could not conquer humanity, he would make sure they could not threaten the Zalathi Empire. Admiral Lisa Grant watched the massive alien fleet appear on her screens and felt fear, but also determination. The human forces were outnumbered 10-1, but they had something the aliens still did not understand: all ships. "This is Admiral Grant," she broadcast to the human fleet. "Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the right of all emotional beings to exist in this galaxy." In space, Commander Lisa Hunt led her squadron of hybrid fighters against impossible odds. The Zalathi ships were larger and more powerful, but the human pilots flew with emotional bonds that created tactical advantages the enemy could not counter. "Stay together," Hunt told her pilots. "Feel what I feel and let the ships amplify our connection." The alien technology and their fighters responded to the emotional network between the human crews. When Jake Kim was hit and his ship damaged, Hunt felt his pain and used that connection to coordinate a rescue that saved his life. On Earth, the battle was even more desperate. Zalathi planet-killer weapons began targeting major cities in an attempt to break human resistance through terror. In New York, Sergeant Danny Torres watched alien beams destroy entire city blocks. "They are trying to make us afraid," he told his squad. "But fear will make us stronger if we use it right." The weapon Torres carried had been modified by Dr. Maria Santos to channel human emotional energy into devastating power. As he watched his city burning, he felt anger and love and determination flowing through the alien technology. In the underground laboratory, Santos coordinated a global network of humans, whose emotional bonds had become the backbone of Earth's defense. Every act of courage and every moment of sacrifice added power to systems that the Zalathi had never imagined possible. "The emotional network is reaching critical mass," she reported to Admiral Grant. "Human feelings are overloading alien technology." Across the planet, Nurse Helen Ross worked in a field hospital treating wounded soldiers while alien ships attacked the city above her. Instead of breaking her spirit, the suffering around her strengthened her compassion and made her medical equipment work beyond its normal capabilities. When a Zalathi beam weapon threatened to destroy the hospital, Helen did something that no logical being would attempt. She connected herself directly to the alien targeting system and used her love for her patients to redirect the weapon away from innocent people. The beam hit an empty building instead of the hospital because human emotional energy had overwhelmed. Zalathi logical programming. Captain Tony Lewis led the final assault on the main alien stronghold, knowing that this battle would decide everything. His forces were tired and outnumbered, but they fought with emotional bonds that made them more than just individual soldiers. "For our families," he shouted as they charged the enemy positions. "For our future." The human soldiers moved with coordination that came from shared feelings rather than tactical training. When Private Mike Johnson was wounded trying to save civilians, the entire squad felt his determination and used that emotion to guide their attack. High Commander Vexitar watched his forces being defeated by tactics that defied every principle of logical warfare. Human fighters were accomplishing impossible missions through emotional determination that pushed alien technology beyond all safety limits, Sir reported Sub-Commander Krell. Human resistance is increasing despite our superior firepower. Their emotional responses are creating military advantages that our computers cannot calculate. Vextar realized that his species' fundamental misunderstanding of humanity was causing their defeat. "These beings do not fight with logic," he said. "They fight with feelings that make them stronger rather than weaker." The turning point came when Dr. Santos activated the final phase of the emotional network. Every human on Earth and in space became connected through bonds of love and determination and shared purpose. Admiral Grant felt the connection as it spread through her fleet. Suddenly, every ship captain could sense the feelings of their crews, and every crew member could feel the determination of the entire human species. "All ships attack together," she ordered. "Let them feel what it means to threaten our home." The human fleet moved as one guided by emotional coordination that the Zalathi could not match. Ships that should have been destroyed continued fighting because their crews were powered by the love and support of an entire species. Commander Hunt led the final assault on the Zalathi command ship, flying a fighter that responded to the emotional energy of every human in the solar system. As she approached the massive alien vessel, she felt the hopes and dreams of billions of people flowing through her ship's systems. "For Earth," she said, as she fired weapons powered by the collective emotional determination of humanity. The blast that destroyed the Zalathi flagship was more than just energy. It was love and courage and sacrifice transformed into power that the logical alien mind could never have imagined on the ground. Captain Lewis broke through the final enemy defenses using weapons that channeled the emotional bonds between his soldiers. The Zalathi defenders found themselves facing humans who fought with the strength of their entire species behind them. Sergeant Torres planted the final charge that would destroy the alien command center. As he set the timer, he thought about his daughter and his wife, and all the children who would grow up free because of what happened today. The explosion marked the end of Zalathi resistance on Earth. The aliens who had come to conquer an emotionally weak species found themselves defeated by the very feelings they had dismissed as primitive. High Commander Vexitar stood in his damaged control room and finally understood the truth about humanity. "We saw their emotions and called them weak," he said to Krell. "But those same emotions gave them strength we could never match." "Sir, what are your orders?" Krell asked. "Signal retreat to all ships." Vexitar replied, "We cannot defeat beings who fight with their hearts as well as their minds." As the Zalathi fleet withdrew from the solar system, Admiral Grant felt tears of joy streaming down her face. Around her, the bridge crew was cheering and crying and hugging each other with the emotional bonds that had saved their species. "Admiral," said Dr. Santos over the communication link, "the emotional network is stable and growing stronger. We did not just survive the invasion. We learned to use our feelings as a source of power." The victory celebration lasted for days, as humans across Earth and in space rejoiced in their freedom. But more important than the military victory was what they had discovered about themselves, Captain. Lewis stood in the ruins of New York holding his young son and watching construction crews begin rebuilding the city. "The aliens thought our love for each other made us weak," he told the boy, "but it made us stronger than they could ever be." Dr. Santos published her research on emotional technological interfaces, and human civilization began developing new tools that used feelings as sources of power rather than obstacles to overcome. Commander Hunt was promoted to lead the new human space defense force equipped with ships that combined alien technology with human emotional intelligence. The galaxy would learn that Earth was not a planet of weak emotional beings, but a world of people whose feelings made them capable of impossible things. Admiral Grant addressed the United Earth Council as they planned humanity's expansion into space. "The Zalathi saw our weakness and missed our strength," she said. "Now we will carry that strength to the stars and show the galaxy what emotional beings can accomplish." Years later, when other alien species asked humans about their victory over the Zalathi Empire, the answer was always the same. Humanity won, not despite their emotions, but because of them. The aliens had made the mistake of thinking that feelings were weaknesses when they were actually the source of human strength. Love gave them reasons to fight. Fear gave them caution and creativity. Anger gave them determination. Joy gave them hope. As human ships began exploring the galaxy they carried with them, the lesson that the Zalathi had learned too late. Emotions were not primitive responses to be overcome, but powerful forces that could move mountains and change the course of history. The species that had been dismissed as emotionally weak became known throughout the galaxy as the people who fought with their hearts and won because of it. Earth was free, and humanity had learned that their greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons, but their capacity to feel deeply and love completely. The aliens had seen human weakness and missed human strength, but they would never make that mistake again.